What's up guys, it's Sean from Window Tint Warriors, and today I'm going to show you how to tint the back window on a Tesla Model 3. Not a fun time, it is a big window, and you do need a 60-inch roll. Now on this back window, it's about 50 inches tall, and it's 42 inches wide. So you can't use a 40-inch roll and go this way because you'll be short an inch on the top corners on each side. So what we'll have to do, and what every window tinter does now, is takes a 60-inch roll, pulls it long ways, and shrinks the window sideways. And we're gonna use XPEL DAP software to pre-cut this because you do not wanna cut on the Tesla glass. It's the softest glass that you'll probably ever come across when you're tinting windows. So what we're gonna do right now is do the outside prep, dryer sheet. We're gonna pop the panels on the inside so the water doesn't damage those panels at all. We'll prep the inside for the install, and then we'll go over to the computer and pre-cut the pattern, then bring it back here, shrink it, and install it. So let's do the dryer sheet on the outside first, and we'll go inside. Just a quick cleaning on the back window, and then our dryer sheet. All right, now that we have the exterior all prepped, we'll go ahead and open the door. I already went ahead and moved the front seats all the way forward so we have more room. You're gonna see we have like computer paper white interior. The last thing you wanna do is get this dirty. So even if it did have black seats, we're still gonna pop the seats down so that we can sit on top of the carpet area, and we'll be able to stick our feet into the trunk area. So there's a big bag back here. I'm gonna take this out to get it out of the way. All right, let's crawl into the back here, and I'm gonna go over the prep process. You can see I'm just gonna sit on the seats with my feet in the trunk. So right here I have a soak shield, and I have 2 dashboard towels. These are gonna go up on top of the dashboard to hold the water that drips down from the window. You can see the back window goes way up here. Now this might look like it's gonna be mission impossible, and it kind of is, unless you have the right technique. We're gonna reverse roll this and actually use a 3/4 inch PVC pipe to unroll it. So we're gonna roll the tint onto the PVC pipe, which you'll see later. So first we're gonna go ahead and pop these panels. You can basically see right here, we have this little hook looking like a hammerhead. And it actually goes into this hole, and then it twists, and then the second one will go into the hole. So you put one in, twist, and the other one back in. And we'll go over that when we put this back together, but let's take off the other side. So when we take these off, we're gonna use a gasket stick. Go in the top corner, make sure your hands are clean and the tool is clean, because if it's white, you can stain it very easily. I'm gonna pop it back, and there's a clip up here, and there's also a clip down here. The one on the bottom corner is a lot tighter. Just work close to it with your hand and pop out, holding the black piece in place. And once you have that down, you'll see right here we have 2 black connectors. This one right here is kind of connected by a bungee cord, literally a bungee cord. You can take the bungee cord off of it and leave this part on here, and it just hooks back in when you want to put it back together. The one down here in the midsection is a lot more difficult. And you also want to be very careful of these ribbon cables here that are connected to the antenna. This is an antenna in the top section. The lower section is defroster lines. So definitely be careful of this antenna ribbon cable right here. So let me further explain this clip a little bit since we're in this position here. When the airbag goes off, these plastic pieces and this bungee cord one up here hold this plastic in place from flying off and allow the airbag to drop out of the bottom. So when we reinstall this, the bottom half goes in first. So the part that's close to the carpet side goes in first. So you want to twist it like this and pop it in. So that means when it comes out, the top part that's close to the metal clip has to come out first, and then it comes out. So if you try to pull it by releasing the bottom half first, so the part that's close to the plastic first, it will not come out. You have to get that top section out first, and then the bottom will release. So there's a trick to removing these, and these are very common on many different vehicles that have this on the front pillars and the back pillars. Let's just stuff that to the side. This is the airbag compression cylinder. Now that we have those parts out, the main thing we want to protect here is water dripping on this module here. And there's nothing major on this side, but Just right off the bat, we see a flashing light inside of this one and a bunch of holes. If water drips into there, there's a high chance it could fry out. So I'm gonna take one of my blue towels right away, just cover that up and tuck it into the top as much as possible because we do not wanna get that wet. Once that's covered, we're gonna go ahead and take our skinny soak shield and I'm gonna start by overlapping it on the plastic and shoving it behind there. Then I'll take my paddle tool to get it down into the bottom of the deck lid. And then getting it out of the way by completely wrapping it around the plastic so that it's not hitting the window at all, so that when we reverse roll this, the tint does not hit it. So that's completely out of the way. And we'll continue by laying it down into the bottom. For when the water drips down, the soak shield collects all that water. And then we'll do the same thing on this side with the black plastic, getting it over and behind there. Kind of working the black plastic back and forth. Could remove this, but the seatbelt is part of it, so it gets a little complicated there. It's not really in the way. As long as you can get that soak shield behind there, and then put the soak shield to the side, you're good to go. So we'll take this black clip here, put it behind the compression cylinder for the airbags, and we look good. This is good to go. So as far as inside prep, let's lay out our dashboard towels first. Get those in place. Limit the amount of water that drips everywhere, covering those back speakers. So that's good. We could take another one here just for extra measures since we have to, and make sure this module stays covered. So now we'll do the inside prep so we don't have to do that when we come back in here and spray squeegee spray. We'll do a light mist. I couldn't see this window being too dirty. Use our blue non-score pad with a scrubber to get down on the bottom. Give it a nice light scrub. Scrub the remainder of the window. Being careful of the ribbon cable. Now, one thing to pay attention to with the headliner is with any headliner, there's a chance that the headliner glue, which looks like little hairs, could be hanging down. So when you wipe this down after we scrub it, you want to rub the headliner a little bit just to make sure none of those hairs can contaminate a very precious job on a Model 3 back window. Now, if you're doing this back window with a ceramic material, the material costs can go up a lot because you're using a 60-inch roll. It's about 50 inches long. So the last thing you want to do is compromise your install with a improper prep. So take your time to prep this back window, make sure it's really clean, everything's protected, and you won't have to worry about anything when you go to install. Now, before I even go and lay the material out, shrink it, and reverse roll it, I'm gonna do a spray and squeegee to remove any dust that could be on the window from the towel that I just used. I'm gonna do another spray squeegee before I install as well. So our yellow turbo, so go ahead and just do our initial squeegee. And to be doing this way, it takes a little bit of core strength because I'm literally doing a sit-up. And you can see I'm holding myself up with my left hand on the outside of the car. This can get a little tricky. Just take your time and be very patient. Watching for that ribbon cable. Now we'll go with the side swiper. I could feel right now I'm hitting my head on the glass. It's going to be a big no-no when we do our final spray squeegee spray because we don't want any hair in the top section. So we're going to be a lot more careful when we go to install the material. So our initial cleaning is good. The dryer sheet on the outside is dry. Let's go pre-cut the material and lay it out and shrink it. All right, so right here we have XPEL XR Black, 20%, 60 inches by 100 feet. This is like a roll of gold right here. For our XR Plus, that'll be a roll of something else, but we're going to pre-cut this on the plotter and be very careful about the roll spooling out. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and pull up XPEL DAP here, put in the vehicle with window film. It's a 2020 Tesla. Go ahead and select the rear window here as one piece. And since we have to shrink it sideways, we're gonna have to rotate this 90 degrees, which means that we're gonna have a waist of about 20 inches, which we can use for the side doors. So if you put it into perspective here, we have the 42.5 inch wide back window, and then the rest will be the leftover of the 60-inch roll where you can put 2 doors as well if you're gonna do this yourselves. That's it, we got the pre-cut. Cut this off and we'll weed it out on the table. All right, now that we have the material laid out on the back window, instead of us doing an H pattern this way, we're gonna have to do it sideways. So essentially we'll start from the middle, go to the top, to the bottom, then sideways on the top and the bottom. Bringing all the fingers sideways. Making sure that we're on track. Looks good. Now it's shrinking time. So the whole key with shrinking this window sideways is to shrink it slowly and evenly. You see I'm not pushing with a card yet because the fingers are so large. You want to give them area to spread out. I'm going to be sure to keep that H pattern. The key with this is patience, letting it evenly shrink, splitting it with your fingers, making sure you're shrinking from the point of the finger and not midway. When the fingers start to go sideways, that's when you need to give them a little push with the hard card. But if they're laying down nicely by you splitting them, let it flow naturally. You can see how we have all of this material shrunk here. So we can go ahead, once you have a good section shrunk, you can go ahead and push, but don't push further than 1 inch away from your most recent shrink. There's many different ways to do this. This is the technique that works best for me. And this is a ceramic material, so it tends to be a little trickier to shrink, depending on the manufacturer. XPEL's material has a nice slick coating on it, so it doesn't really stick to the window like most other ceramic films do. And the main thing you don't want to do is overheat one section, which is why I say just evenly heat it, because if it gets too hot, then you'll get a heat crease and the material will pinch. And that's it. There's no going back from there. You can see right here, this material going sideways. That means we have to push it. If you continue to shrink the material, if it's going sideways, it will cause a crease. You can see I'm giving a little tug on the end of the material to help it lay down. I'm not pulling it, I'm just basically pulling it enough or lifting it up enough for it to naturally lay down after it shrinks. Because if it's stuck a little bit here and you shrink it here, it'll cause that crease to happen or the pinch. So it'll slowly work like we did with the beginning, and as you get to the end it gets trickier. And now that we have all of this shrunk, we're going to go ahead and push it. You could heat at the same time while you do this, but I'm doing this just for the video purposes, showing you nice and slowly, and then continue. So the worst thing that you can do is get really excited towards the end and start pushing these all the way through, because even this finger right here, if you push this all the way through, there's a very high chance that it'll crease. So continue to go as you did in the beginning. You see how I'm only working in 1 inch sections, if that, maybe even just a ½ inch. You see right here I stopped because I saw the finger moving rapidly. If it moved... Now that I'm right at the end, and you can see the clear liner shrinking faster than the tint, which it does. You want to try to use less heat on the clear and more heat from this direction, because if you heat the clear too much, it'll crease and it'll make shrinking it a lot harder. You can see I'm using a hard card now. One thing you do not want to do is hit the glass with this hard card, because this hard card, believe it or not, will scratch the Tesla glass. A couple fingers that are pointing upwards, we have to shrink those because they have to go sideways. And that is how you shrink one side of the back window. I'm going to do the other side a lot quicker to make this video a little shorter. All right, in a normal instance, I would have left the excess tint. I wouldn't have weeded it, but the only reason I weeded it is because there was a little bit of a wacky cut with the plotter that it was a little off, but it still fits perfectly. So there's nothing too crazy. But you see how the release liner, like I said, on the other side shrinks a lot faster, and we have some heat creases in it. I'm gonna try to cut off as much of that heat crease as possible with my blade here before we go and reverse roll it, because that can cause a little bit of complications with unrolling it, because it gets crispy like a potato chip, literally. So I want to get rid of that and make sure that's not in our way when we are unrolling the reverse roll. I'm not cutting on the glass here. I'm actually just cutting and pulling the liner up and away and cutting it as I lift it. The main key, I wanted to get it away from that contact point for the ribbon cable. All right, so now let's get to the reverse rolling. Before I reverse roll it, I'm going to spray the outside with soapy water and the underside around the borders. Doing this will allow me to squeegee around the border, and not only will it mount it in place better, it will allow me to get any dirt and debris that's around the border from around the border, so that when I peel the liner to reverse roll it, that dirt and debris won't get into the film. So we're really just worried about the perimeter. You can see this mark right here. That was just the tape from the beginning of the roll. That's on the release liner. It's not on the film itself. Get this mounted back in place and squeegee around the border. Now we can go ahead and pull the release liner, spray soapy water between the release liner and the film's glue side, and then lay the release liner back down to reverse roll it, then install it. So spray this up, pull the liner, do a quarter of the roof. If I were to pull this whole release liner down halfway, it would be impossible for me myself to get the liner back up without it folding over and possibly this side landing on the glue side of the material. So we're trying to reduce contamination by doing just a quarter way, and then we'll come on the other side and do the same thing. If you have another person, you can release the whole liner and be fine. Lift it up in the middle here. Make sure this is laying over that side. Lift it up. Spray up the whole glue side of the material. Lay it down with the corners without touching the clean side of the liner. Then we'll make sure this is evenly laid out. We can't have any bubbles like this when we reverse roll it. Carefully pushing those bubbles out. Now when we reverse roll this, we're going to start from the top to the bottom, because we're going to start at the bottom and unroll up. So we have to start where we're going to end. And to do this, we're going to use a 3/4 inch PVC pipe that's 42 inches. So I'm going to grab that right now, and we're going to roll the film up onto that. Now before you go ahead and use this, let's assume that it's been sitting in the corner for a couple days and you don't know if there's dust all over it. Give it a wipe down just to be sure, because after all of that work, the last thing you want is a piece of dust on this to get into the film. So we're going to take this 3/4 inch PVC, lay it exactly in the middle. I'm going to lift the film up with the release liner, get it started evenly, get this rolling down nice and tight. And you can see the point we do this, or the reason why we do this, is because when you're reverse rolling, when you get to about right here, the material just starts to fall because there's no stability to it. But I was told this by Dean Mitchell from Expel, to keep the stability of the film, and it's just laying on your arms as you reverse roll this onto the glass. So we can lift this up now, being sure not to squeeze the material too hard, just naturally letting it roll, keeping it nice and even. Then we'll go inside and do our spray squeegee spray, and then we can grab this and install it. So before I do that, I'm going to lay the material right here on the outside on an angle so it has nowhere to roll. Go on the inside, do a spray, very light mist, just enough to lubricate the squeegee around the whole perimeter and center. The squeegee with the yellow turbo. You'll see I'm leaning back a lot more on this one because I don't want my head to hit the window after it's clean. Let's continue with the overlapping strokes all the way to the bottom, as far as you can reach, and then we'll hit the bottom with the side swiper. Spray a little mist so we can overlap that stroke. Wipe our blade. Then we'll mist the window up to install the film. Now what's tricky with this is you don't want too much slip solution that the film starts falling off the window as you go, but you want enough so that when you get the film laid out that you can line it up properly. So let's go ahead and grab that material off the roof. Grab this, go inside, and then we'll go ahead with our standard reverse roll. So we'll peel the material. You can see the liner stays on the material as you unroll it. So this is the glue side right here. If we touch it, we will contaminate it. And we're going to keep our head away from the ceiling. I'm going to unravel about, let's say 12 inches without the film touching anything on the glue side. I'll put my hand under to unravel more. And then what we're going to do is we're going to allow the film, or allow the PVC pipe to lay on my arm. I'll get the film touched to the window in the center. And as we push down, the film will unravel on your arms because of that PVC pipe. Now get as comfortable as possible so you're not straining and you can focus on concentrating on getting the film on. You can see the film unroll on my arms as I'm pushing it down. Now a little key here is to take the release liner, pull it off of the material so that when you're pushing down, your hands aren't sliding on the release liner and it's gripping on the window film. Now we can go ahead and move up. Now we have the film and release liner coming down. Now I'm going to let this film hang and finish my adjustments. If you can get this bottom to line up perfectly before getting the top unrolled, then more power to you. But if you get stuck in a situation where it's hard to move the film down as you're unraveling it, then you can go ahead and do exactly what I'm doing right now. And then once you get the bottom down more, you can kind of just lay back, get it behind the headliner. You don't want it to hit the headliner. You want to pull it down before it hits and then slide it into place. Then we'll go back to the bottom. You can see I have some material bunched up here. I'm just going to take my hands to the bottom, push it down, work it into place. And we sprayed enough slip solution so that we have enough time to work with this. If it's a lot hotter, and say that you tinted the doors first and you notice it's really tacky, definitely add a little bit more soap to do the back window. Reposition it. And once everything lines up, we can go ahead and squeegee this out. Simple enough, right? Or not. I mean, you get to lay down on the job, so it's kind of a fun tint job to do. So now when I start to squeegee this, if you look at it from this side, you have this tinted factory tint fade. I'd like to start about 2 inches from above it, and I'll just bring that straight to the back, let it pour all over you, and then we'll go sideways from there. Kind of like how we did the H pattern. And then working it all into the sides. You want to try to avoid pushing all the water up because you don't want it to get into this headliner here and stain it potentially. Always double checking, making sure this module is covered. And once I squeegee this all out with the yellow turbo squeegee, I'm going to go over it with the Blue Max with the fusion handle to make sure I get as much water out from between the film and the glass as possible. Start working our way down, being careful of that ribbon cable. And now once we get to about 9 inches, 10 inches from the bottom, I'll hit it with the side swiper, starting from the middle out on each side. So now that we're nice and comfortable and we got the whole window squeegeed out with the yellow turbo, I'm going to go over it with the Blue Max and the fusion handle. Spray a light mist. I'm going to do the same exact squeegee marks as we did before, overlapping hard strokes. And you want to get as much water from between the film and the glass as possible so that the drying process happens as quick as possible. And you don't get huge water bubbles forming during the drying process, which is okay. They will, for the most part, dry out, but you want to avoid them. It's just proper practice to get as much water from between the film and the glass out as possible. Now, one thing you have to pay attention to is when you get to these defroster lines, depending on the film that you're using, you see how they go up and down rather than side to side. It can cause an issue here where if you're using a specific film, I'm not sure which ones do it, or even just a specific Tesla that was built a different way, these sideways lines, you can tend to drag air from them and they'll cause air pockets when you go sideways. So after you do this, just give it a quick check on the outside, make sure there's no air pockets, and if there isn't, then you're good to go. Now this looks good. We're going to uncover this module, wipe around it, make sure nothing drips into it, and then we're going to go around the perimeter with the Graylako card wrapped in a towel just to get any water residue that could potentially drip between the film and the glass after the vehicle leaves. And in the meantime, turn on the heat. All right, now we have the tint installed on the inside, so all we have to do is wipe off this dryer sheet material. You could wipe off the dryer sheet material after you roll it on to the pipe just to get it off, but we're gonna do that now since we already installed the film. And we're gonna give it a quick check over, make sure everything's good. Have the heat on full blast. Close 3 of the doors. You see we have a little finger right here, which will just need some heat from the outside, and then a little push from the inside. So we'll go ahead and heat this up. Everything else looks great. And at the same time, we'll heat across the bottom. You'll see another one right here, just to make sure it's evenly heated. I'll just give one push across the bottom to make sure that's all laid down. I'm gonna lay the heat gun right by the door so that when I'm inside, if I have to grab it to push something out on the inside, it'll be right there. The last thing you wanna do is put the heat gun inside of the car. Start off the bat, I can see a couple spots where there's some water residue still between the film and the glass, so I'll just push those out. Main focus will be across the top. Make sure that's pushed out nicely. And by the antenna contacts, I'm gonna need to heat a little bit. Once you're done with the heat gun, take it out of the car. And we'll push out that bubble on the bottom. Once that's all good, we'll give it a wipe down. Remove the dash towels, remove the soak shield very carefully. You don't want to put too much pressure on it because then you'll squeeze the water out of it. Put that to the side. Gather all tools. Wipe down the inside quickly. Then we have to reinstall these trim pieces on the side. So like I said before, to reinstall these, this top one here, we can just pop off the bungee cord. Bottom in first. Top in, twist. And with that one, it doesn't connect the bottom one because it'll be harder to reach if it's connected at the top. Bottom, we'll twist it. Goes in. Make sure it's even. Line up the panel on the back. All right, these can be a little tricky to get back into place, but you just have to make sure that you have these clips lined up when you put them back into the holes, and everything will fall back into place. So you just put the black connected. We're gonna line up the bottom first. It'll pop into place. Once the bottom's lined up, the main thing you have to focus on is getting the top pins into place, lined up evenly before any of them go in. And once they get lined up, they'll all go in. You just gotta tap them. They do take a very solid hit to get them to clip back into place because they are heavy duty clips. Again, make sure your hands are clean when you're doing this. If it has the white interior or even any other interior, you don't want to leave any residue on the customer's interior. So go ahead and give a wipe down around the perimeter, the rear quarter glass windows, and good to go. Make sure you put the seats back up and the seat belts. Wipe the interior down. And that is how you tint the back window on a Tesla Model 3. Good luck to you with trying it out. If you're a tint shop, you got to get it down pat, so practice is key. I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, of course. Peace.